pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's go over a little bit of housekeeping. Mobile devices, if everybody's got them, I know people are going to be tweeting and posting. If you'll go ahead and put those on vibrate so that we're not disturbing anybody. First, that would be great. Second, do I have any other elected officials in the audience this evening? If you're here, if you would just let us know you're here, and we want to thank you for coming. All right. Secondly, I would like to recognize Brad Breedlove. Brad is the principal here at Monroe High School. Brad has opened his home up here for us for this evening, and we appreciate that. Brad is also our district principal of the year and now regional principal of the year, and I have a good feeling he's going to be the state principal of the year. All right, so a couple of things. This is a very, excuse me. Couple of things. We understand that we're going to go over some stuff that some of you guys aren't going to like, some of you may like. I would appreciate it if we would keep decorum. If it gets out of hand or people start getting unruly, the officers here are instructed to come and ask you to leave. All right? I apologize for that, but the only way we're going to get through this is to work together. So if y'all can bear with me for that, I would appreciate it. So now we're going to move on with our meeting. Item 4, approval of our agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve item 4, the agenda as presented.
Mrs. Savage, second. All in favor? It was unanimous. Moving on to our consent agenda. We have personnel issues and we have the Stallings Elementary School easement on there. Can I have a motion, please? Got a motion from Ms. Savage to approve? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Helms, for the second. All in favor? Aye. One other thing that I neglected to state just a moment ago, Mr. Collins is not with us this evening. He will be in Florida with the Islam family at the memorial service and funeral there. So if you will all keep the Islam family and the Collins family in your thoughts and prayers, we'd appreciate that. Now we're going to move on to the topic why everybody is here, options to ease overcrowding. And we're going to have a presentation from Dr. Ellis and Dr. Webb.
And board members, for you to see clearly, we've reserved you some seats down front so you can look. So if you want to leave the podium and walk down here by the flag, and we've got seats for you down on the first row. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. Board members, thank you. I've got to do what? Stay away from that, all right? Let me get right over here if I've got to stay away. Well, there's one there too. All right, I'm just going to stand right here. Sorry about this, everyone. We have looked at multiple options, both locally, statewide, and nationally, to ease overcrowding. And we have researched these options and want to do a presentation for you tonight. We have about 7 or 8 different things that you can consider, either solely, in combination, all, some, or none. Any of them will work with caveats, and staff stands ready to do any one or combination that the board decides that we need to do. So let's start the presentation. Oh, I've got this thing, okay? Mike, I think you want to talk first because you did this at another meeting, so you start out first.
Well, as you recall, the board directed us in looking at the population bubble and addressing that bubble with maximizing efficiency and optimizing the available seats which we have. So we had to define the population bubble, look at long-term adjustments, Could that long-term adjustments be handled through waiting out the bubble? Could the adjustment be handled through mobile units? Could the adjustment be handled through additions, new construction as far as elementary, middle, or high? Or did we have available seats and maximize those? Again, throughout this journey, staff had to keep in mind that we had to make sure that we could meet the core needs of our children, meaning make sure that we could provide them safety in a catastrophic situation. We could get them behind brick and mortar. We also had to make sure that we could meet the basic needs of providing them lunch and breakfast, as well as the office space needed through guidance and administrative, etc. And then we looked at, like I said, to help us guide us, how long is that bubble? Is that a 15, 20-year bubble? And where's the peak of that? And I shared with you, the bulk of that bubble is in this, it starts in our 7th grade, and it's working itself through our middle and through our high schools.
This map is, I drew for our principals last week a depiction of what we call the crescent or the curve or where the growth is. And if you'll see, the curve starts in the sort of the southwestern and arcs up over towards Porter Ridge. The crescent, I guess that's the best way to say, and that is a visual of where the pocketed growth is and what we're trying to address. With looking at different options, including but not limited to split track, multi-track, magnet, redistricting, mobile units, all different kinds of things. So I wanted you to have the visual. And because of the extreme growth in that lower western pocket, if the determination becomes that you're talking about moving children to different seats, I wanted everybody to have a visual to see where the growth is, and we had no way to go with the growth but like this. And that's, I can't talk it and do it at the same time. All right, well, okay. The methodology, and Mike, you want to talk about the methodology?
One of the things that the methodology is not a bit of algorithm here. If you look at the crescent, you've got South Carolina and Charlotte Mecklenburg, so you couldn't go backwards in any way. So you look here at the crescent, and you had to work from the growth out. So, and that's what we did. So we adjusted the assignment plan by affecting the least number of students as possible. The reason that we say that is because there are available seats further east when you look at the forecast sheets in our Forest Hills cluster. So if you are looking and wondering, well, why are some schools forecast in the watch area remain about the same, that's where we look. The growth is not in that area that we're observing in that crescent area. So we felt comfortable leaving that there, or we would have had to pull more children to continue to push them further. So when we say that we tried to limit the number of children we affected, that's because we didn't want to push more children further into the Porter Ridge, Piedmont, Forest Hills areas, because that's how that crescent worked. We focused on areas identified by the 2013 demographic study. I will share with you, I know that a lot of people question McKibben's study. I will tell you this. McKibben's accuracy is within 2% nationwide, and for Union County Public Schools, that's 0.25% with the UCPS system-wide. When you look at his last study and you begin to question those years, now you wonder, well, his forecast was off. It was not off in the year 2010 when we contracted with him for that 8-9 study for 10. We just did not bring him back in and waste our resources when we were in the beginnings of the recession. It made no sense to come back in and tell us what we already knew, that the building had stopped. We were growing, and we estimated about 1 to 1.25%, not that 8, 9, 10, as high as 13% that we had been experiencing. So we elected to save our dollars, not bring McKibben back in to adjust his forecast sheet. McKibben's report, if you looked at that 2010 prior to that recession, he was off for Union County Public Schools 0.15%. And we always have to look at maximizing transportation efficiency. When you look at efficiency, if you were to speak with Mr. Kingsbury or Mr. Sheldon, they would talk to you, efficiency is not just miles. It's not just that point A to point B. It's the number of students on a bus. If you exceed that bus, then you have to put a second bus on that route. So there are a lot of things that go into efficiency, not just it's 6 miles from this point to this point. We also, our initial plan looked at grandfathering rising seniors. I shared that information with the Facilities Committee at our last meeting. We will share with you that same information, but including grandfathering rising junior as we were directed at the last meeting. The column names changed in our forecast sheets, looking at when it comes to the watch level as well as the capping level, because we heard from the parents that they weren't sure when that capping would take place. So we clearly put watch area when we begin to watch and target and working with municipalities and looking at the housing permits at which they are awarding and granting and seeing what we can do. I can tell you we started looking at this as a facilities committee. We brought Dr. McKibben on last April. We've had discussions about the forecast and the potential of the economic engine starting to start up and growth, and we decided to bring McKibben on in April. We had those discussions after about, I believe it's probably in February, if not January. And the one of the things at which the Board of Education tasked us with was let's try to put a plan together that we wouldn't be sitting back here a year from now, 2 years from now, going through this again. So we looked at 5 years. I shared with the Facilities Committee that for our purpose of planning, we didn't want to go past 5 years. And the reason for that is twofold. One, when you start getting 7, 8, 9, 10 years out, for us, we work with the county in budgeting and planning on a 5-year plan. So we have to be able to give them the information if we're needing construction dollars well in advance, because it takes us 24 months to come up out of the ground if we own the property, and up to 36 months if we're having to go procure the land and then send everything out to bid and all that so forth. So that's what we did. Now, I will tell you, as we have discussed before, you must be very, very careful because of this domino effect of redistricting in this plan of what we call the butterfly effect. It's not that I want to move 50 children or we're an aging out community and we're only 75 or we're 100. Because we pushed, if you allow this 50 to come in or this 100 or whatever the number may be, you may very well be telling this 50 or this 100 that you're going to have to go out. So you have to factor that in.
I'm going to talk a little bit about budgeting and the way, because in regard with every one of these options up here. Union County Public Schools, as most of you know, but some of you may not, and I will tell you that anybody that attended the trial every day got a crash course in Union County Public Schools finances. We get our money in 3 buckets. We get federal money, we get state money, and we get local money. The majority of our money is state money, followed by local money, followed by federal money. The federal money is tied up so tight, we're audited multiple times a year. There is no wiggle room with federal money whatsoever. Mr. Jeffries would attest to the headaches attached to the federal money. The state, people believe that we get money for children. What we get in Union County Public Schools and every other LEA, that's school district in North Carolina, is position allotments. We get position allotments based on our 20-day numbers. So this year we were given, I believe, Dr. Clark, it was 1,985 teaching positions. So we don't get money, we get positions. It can be a 30-year teacher making a 30-year salary, or it can be a first-year teacher, but we get positions and the state pays the positions. They also give us instructional money for children. It's 061 money, and it's supplies, equipment, and materials. And that is what we use with for our instructional program. That money is pretty much tied up. The local funding, and we've had a dispute, and we're still in the middle of that dispute. Things are looking better. But that money, the county commissioners, when they passed their budget, they cut our 6,000 series. That's our support. That's where we can pull a little bit of money. They cut that budget by 11%. They fully funded the 5,000 series, and that is our instructional money. They also put in place, and legally they can under statute, that we cannot transfer money, but a certain amount, which is almost negligible. We don't transfer money out of instructional anyway, because that goes to the children for things they need for instruction. So I say that to you and to you board members to let you know those are the three pots of money from which we work. And we would have to find money for whatever option you choose from one of those. The 6,000 series is tapped out because the county cut us 11%. I can't touch federal money. I get positions in state money, and 85 or 86% of our state budget is tied up in positions. So that leaves local, and the local has tied our hands that we have negligible movement. And so a lot of people seem to believe we can pull $1 million rabbit out of the hat. I'm telling you, I got no rabbits unless they're in a line item. And that, I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on the funding sources and the strings tied to each of the funding sources. The options we considered: multi-tracking, split track, K-6 configuration, build new schools, build additions, schools of choice, leave the cap in place, and mobile classrooms. Those are the things that our team researched. Now I will tell you that back during the days of growth, we had a facilities committee, or a facilities department that did all this. That was collapsed with a downturn in the economy, and so the staff that is working on the regular children issues every day is doing this now, and we have done a considerable amount of research. We certainly can go back and do more. If you have questions about anything that I can't answer tonight, I have no problem with that, but I want to make sure that you are informed prior to you making a choice based on what you think is best, both fiscally and for every child in this district. So let's go on and let's start looking at those. I think I've got this. Multi-tracking. The pros and cons. We can increase the facility capacity by about 33%, give or take a little. That will relieve overcrowding. We can do remediation during intersession, and our schools that have been year-round know about the intersession and what that does for children. It helps them not to have that, what we call the summer slide with reduced learning. It is beneficial, very beneficial to the disadvantaged student. Our schools in the Monroe Cluster, our Title I schools, have determined they were going to go year-round. Shiloh, which is not a Title I school in the Sun Valley Cluster, very high test scores, they go year-round. And also that the off-track teachers can be substitutes during intersession. Multi-tracking would be 45 days to school and 15 days off, and 45 days to school and 15 days off, and 45 days to school and 15 days off till you get in your obligatory 185 days. The cons to this, the intercession cost. When we did intercession, and we've cut that out mostly, the lack of funding during the downturn in the economy was about $400,000 because you have your children who are struggling the most. Working with teachers, you have to pay for buses, you have to pay for meals, teachers, the whole 9 yards. The O&M, and when I say O&M, I'm talking operational and maintenance, increases due to more wear and tear of the building. Right now, we save, it's over $1 million a summer we save by turning, and principals can attest that the buildings are hot, and then at 11 o'clock we turn the air conditioning off. to save money, and we have realized substantial savings there. That savings would be gone, and that savings then has gone to be put back in the instructional program and different things. Another one, transitions, with more teacher mobility. When you're thinking about tracking 3 on and 3 off, if I'm a teacher, and it can be done, but I'm not sure how wise it is in a kindergarten classroom that the children have to change classrooms every X times. And we would try to work it to minimize that, but in some cases we won't be able to. Organization would be a nightmare, especially for little ones, because you try to get them in a routine quickly to make it good for them to know, well, next I do this and next I do this. The 4 tracks, if you're looking at, especially at middle school, and I'm middle school to the core, if you look at middle school, the 4 tracks, you lose that community within the student body, you lose a lot of the programs that you can do, you lose a lot of the things that children can work on together. Scheduling issues with siblings on different tracks. I can foresee if we do this, that it could be, I'm in elementary school and I am possibly on track 2, and I'm on track during the summer months. And my middle schooler and my high schooler are on regular track, the regular 185 day. And I also need to say this to you, just to point it out because it's the truth. If we go to multi-track, in which we can, that will affect every child in the school, not simply the children you're talking about redistricting. It will affect every child in the school. And in the past, anytime we've changed the schedule, I'm talking about time-wise or summers, we have had parents vote on it, and we had to have a 75% pass rate or parent approval rate before we changed the times. In new schools we opened, I know we did the same thing. We would have the parents vote out of the gate to let them know, find out. And electives and activities may not be offered on some tracks. And here's the deal. If we provide it for one child in the Union County Public Schools, we need to make that same commitment to every child in the Union County Public Schools. And with multi-tracks, you won't have to have extra teachers because the teachers can track with your children. What you will have to have is you will have to have extra guidance support. You will have to have an extra nurse. You will have to have extra media. You will have to have extra teacher assistants. You will have to have extra, not principal, they're 12-month, but assistant principal support. You will have to pay extra for cafeteria. You will have to pay extra for bus drivers. You will have to pay extra for gas for the buses. So I want to make you aware that with the pros, there are cons, and with the cons, there are definite pros. I just want to make sure that I'm very clear on those items. And we can do it. We can make this happen if that is the will. Split track, this is what I call shift work. And it's doable. I'm going to explain it to you. What it is, it doubles the instructional space. You would have first shift come in at probably 6 a.m. And because the state of North Carolina says children must have a minimum of 5.5 instructional hours during the day, and then you add on lunch, and then you add on recess, and then you add on transition times, and you add on bathroom times. If I go to shift 1, I might get on the bus about 5 o'clock, 5:30. I start class at 6. I go to school until 12:30 or 1 o'clock. The bus takes me home. And then the bus goes and runs another route to pick up the second shift, and they probably won't start until about 2 o'clock. When they start about 2 o'clock, we're going to have to give them the same 6.5, 7 hours. So we'll finish the second shift about 7:30, 8 p.m. at night. The children will be transported home. The pros, it doubles instructional space. It really does. We have double the bang for the buck with space. It allows attendance schedule flexibility, first shift versus second shift. We can separate upper grades from lower grades. That's a possibility. And we can vary schedules for virtual and customized learning. That's a pro. The cons, here again, your siblings may not be on your same schedule. We could not run after school or before school care like we run now because the facilities that we use for before and after school care are the very facilities we use during the school day. So that would cut out before and after school care. It will double our transportation costs because instead of running 2 routes a day, we're going to be running 4 routes a day, so that will be doubled. A lunch schedule, if you've ever been in a building when there's a snow day and principals are trying to feed children before they get home, it is a nightmare. You're shoving lunches at anything that will stand still. Lunch schedules will be hard to do if you do this. We can do it though, or we can do it. It will require twice as many lockers unless you double or triple up on lockers. I always had kids doubling up on lockers. Things always got stolen, and there were always problems, but we can do it. Additional teachers and staff are needed. Here again, your teachers, we won't have to have any extra teachers, classroom teachers, but we will need extra support staff. And by that, I'm talking media specialists, I'm talking guidance counselors, I'm talking nurses, I'm talking secretarial, clerical, I'm talking assistant principal, I'm talking cafeteria. We can do it. And it will affect activities during the school day, possibly. I think that's a minor, but it will affect that. However, it is very doable. K-6 schools. Now, right now,
You're going kind of fast.
I'm sorry. You want me to back up?
No, just eat. I'm from the
I'm
south,
sorry.
I hear slow.
Okay, I'm sorry. He hears slow and I talk fast. I'm sorry. This is so much okay, I understand that. This is not as natural for everyone as it is me. Let me back up here. Let me back up to, what? No, it's okay. Oh, okay, all right, I'll go ahead. You know, folks, I'm doing about the best with this presentation I can. Just hear me out before you make the comments, please. K-6. Right now, we do a K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12 under policy. I believe it's 1, 28, 29, 30, 31, somewhere in there. Can certainly change the policy. That's not an issue. We would need to decide, are you going to go to K-6 and 6th grade being elementary? Because that is very different from 6th grade being housed at the elementary school and working as the middle school. The pros, if you go K-6 as an elementary, it extends the elementary framework for 6th grade students. It provides the vertical articulation programming. That means that 6th graders would be treated just like elementary school students with regard to, we would be covering the curricula, the Common Core, but it would be, they would lose the middle school. If we just, and then I'm going to talk about putting it in middle school, just one second. The cons, the elementary building is not age appropriate for 6th graders, especially those who've had the growth spurt early with regard to seating. We will need 6 to 10 mobile classrooms for 6th grade classes and support wherever we determine to do it. There will be additional costs to provide gyms, and CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. If we decide to treat the 6th graders as middle schoolers housed in an elementary school, we have a historical perspective on that. When Marvin Ridge Middle opened, the construction was delayed due to bad weather during the winter. And Dr. Tom Bull and Dr. Laurel Healy opened Marvin Ridge Middle at Kensington Elementary back when Kensington had 300 students, if you can believe that. And they had a wing of Kensington, and they were there from the first day of school until spring break, which I believe was right around the 1st of April. So it's about 7 months they were there. And what we did was we provided the middle school opportunity for elementary schoolers. And when I say that, they had the same opportunities for foreign language, they had the same opportunities for dance, drama, art, music, and more of an exploratory course. I believe, and I was talking with Dr. Bull about this, I believe we spent around $750,000 to do that for those children, to provide them the same. And here again, it goes back to the human capital for the career and technical education teachers, a band instructor, foreign language teachers. We would need guidance for 6th grade. The media center does not support 6th graders. In a K-6 setting, you're going to have a very tight lunch schedule. And lunch schedules are already pretty tight in schools anyway because you're going to be adding those. The bell schedule would be a challenge because 6th grade day is a little bit longer day. And more buses would be needed, more cars would be in the stack line and create more traffic issues. And I've spoken to some of our principals that have said, please come out to our school and watch the dismissal and the startup anyway with the numbers we have. So pros and cons of 6th grade, but we would need clear direction. Do you intend for 6th graders to be treated as elementary schoolers? And that's retrofit to some part board members. I would need clear direction from you on that. And I would also, we need a password, I would also need to know if you are talking about the middle school concept. Okay. We could build new schools. New elementary, middle, and high school, it's around 81 million. Dr. Webb is going to talk to you. Certainly, if the board chose to do that, you would need to seek approval from the county commissioners for the funding, and we will be happy to facilitate that. We could certainly build additions to schools. We're looking at additions to elementary schools. The cost, we've got it later in the presentation, I don't remember. We could cap schools. Capping schools will increase the transportation cost, and we have a breakdown for that for you later in the presentation. And new attendees would not go to school with their neighbors. And I get that if I'm in the community already, I need to be going to my school as opposed to somebody else. We're going to be here all night to get all that. And that will be a decision that needs to be made. I'm just going to leave that one alone. Leave it alone. Choice. Now, this was one that was presented to us as I was doing some reading. And we have a couple of counties in North Carolina doing this choice, and called them to talk with some folks and looked at their data. And what they do is they create magnets throughout the county, and children can apply to go to the magnets. The biggest problem and we'll certainly research this more because this has got my attention, but what we have found is that their most overcrowded schools are their most affluent schools because parents don't want to leave those schools. And guys, please let me finish. I'm on a roll here. I got this in my head. I got to get it out. To do that, we would have to create some seats in every school, and that's going to mean moving some kids out. And if we made schools of choice without moving kids, the schools of choice would be our schools that are not overcrowded, which is where, if you decide to redistrict, the students are going to be going that everybody's upset about anyway. So that sort of is the Damocles sword. It's sharp on both sides. While it is a real good idea, in theory, when you go to looking at the nuts and bolts of it, folks don't want to leave the more affluent schools, no matter what the magnet is. They want to stay in their home school. Let's see. Here we go. Transportation would not be provided in some of that, or it would be if we could find the money. That would be a board decision that can and has led to overcrowding in affluent neighborhoods. Admittance would be by space available, and there's no diversity there. It's unbalanced by choice, and that can lead, and I'm not sure it will or it won't, but it can lead to segregation. So those are the options, and before we go on to the cost for it, ask me questions. Are there any questions you have about any of the options, or did I talk too fast and I need to repeat something? I'm happy to.
Board members, everybody okay? Keep going.
Okay, keep going. All right, Mike is going to talk to you about some of the costs associated.
When you look at the, can you hear me in the back? When you look at the cost for the elementary school, middle school, high school, if you were looking at all three, that's an $81 million cost. That does not include some of the soft costs, such as designs and architect fees, etc. However, as a board, you can decide that maybe you just needed an elementary school, or you just needed a middle school, or a high school. You have that menu option, I guess, to order what you want at the elementary school. But that cost would be anywhere from $14 million up to $81 million. If you do not cap or reassign, meaning that you're looking at mobile units to offset this bubble of growth, you are looking at approximately $2.89, almost $2.9 million. The cost of those 49 new mobile classrooms, in that 49 are restroom units, could be the office units, could be the cafeteria units. All that's included in the cost that would go based upon the schools that would need the mobile units. But also, you have to include in that $2.9 million approximately $236,000 per year to operate that additional footprint that you're adding to the school system.
Dr. Webb,
Yes.
how long would it take to get new mobile units on campuses?
How long would it take to get new mobile units on campus?
Typically, the county commissioners release the budget to us in June. For us, we'd have to go out to RFP, reverse bid, etc. The earliest that we could get everything approved through the DPI, get them set up and installed, the quickest we could get students in those units would be second semester. So it would be the end of January. For those, Dr. Ellis asked me for DPI, that's Department of Public Instruction, we are required to send the schematics in, the engineering drawings, so they can approve them before we can even move forward. So, not only would you have to deal with that 2.9, the 236 utility costs to operate those, but you're going to have to bridge that gap for the first semester of either extending the cap or some other alternative to bridge the first semester until the units were available for the students to occupy. Looking at the cost for the split track, I just picked one cluster. I just did the Marvin Ridge cluster because that's the first maps that we looked at. And I looked at the split track. It would cost approximately $1.8 million per year. So you have to determine how many schools you're going to place on a split track. To do that, you can look in, order from the menu. If it's one elementary school, you can see that's almost $232,000. Now, put per elementary school. If it's a middle school, it's $343,000 for additional operations and maintenance costs. You then must add in the additional cost for transportation. So the new fuel truck, according to our transportation department, to receive that fuel truck or procure it's about 9 months. But you can see the fuel truck's $100,000, and to operate those buses would be about $1.16 million.
Let me talk about the second part. I think the bottom bullet does not include the additional months of employment for certified and non-certified staff. The 1.8 is expensive. We have not had a chance to winnow down the exact amount for the human capital there, but it would be extra months of employment that we would have to do. And I'm just looking at what we did with Marvin Ridge for 7 months. How many years ago was that? 7 years ago or so. And it was right around $750,000 there. So there will be a fairly hefty human capital cost there. It's doable, but there will be the cost for the human, for the staff.
Continue with the cost. If you look at maintaining the capping, the current cap that's in place, and looking at the additional schools that may go into the cap area, that cost is $2,029,000 and change. Working with transportation equates to 16 new buses. What this does not include is the compensation for the drivers and the fuel costs and so forth. That's simply to purchase the buses that would be needed. That's about $90,000 per bus. We have to secure those funds from the county commissioners. That's a capital purchase for us as well. We looked at additions. And again, we can do anything that's on this so-called menu. The additions is about 1.9, and it's 1.5 to 1.9, looking at if we have a favorable bid market. I can tell you that it's getting more challenging to get a favorable bid market as the economy continues to crank up. But but you have to give us about 1.5 to 2 years to build after the funding is placed. But if we're doing additions, there would be no cost for the additional land. K-6 schools we looked at, again, we have experience with that. Again, for 1 year, that cost is a little over $1 million. Those funds would go to purchase 4 buses. You see the cost there. To operate those buses and maintain them, we would need 10 mobile classrooms. The et cetera on the mobile classrooms is because there's some ancillary things that must go in. For example, the wireless mesh. As you know, we're just now getting the wireless mesh in on a rotation basis from where it was delayed on the order from the lawsuit that we've just been in. So we have to put wireless mesh for the internet around the mobile units. You have your ramps that you have to deal with. You've got your furniture, student desks, teacher desks, filing cabinets, etc. So that's the etc. part that's going in there. Correct. And again, you can see to operate the utility costs for those, the footprint that you're adding for those 10 mobile classrooms. And again, it does not include what Dr. Ellis had shared with you earlier. You'd have to make a decision whether you're moving into that elementary curricula at K-6 or if you're going to replicate the middle school curricula, because that would be additional personnel in those areas of guidance, media specialists, etc. So, multi-tracking. Again, went with the first cluster in order of our maps. Looked at the multi-tracking with the Marvin cluster. It was $702,000 and change per year. The additional yearly facility operations and maintenance, again, a yearly cost, is $110,000 and change for elementary school and $205,000 and change for your middle schools. Multi-tracking really is not a viable option for your high schools because of all of the athletics and extracurricular and co-curricular things that are taking place after school. A lot of times, if you'll see it as primarily at an elementary and not utilized a lot even at the middle school level. The additional cost for transportation is $386,000 and change. And again, the above figure does not include costs for the additional months of employment for certified and non-certified staff. As we went through budget cuts, our principals are issued those support staff in months of employment, and we have very few of those support staff that are in 12 months. Reassignment, the last option. There's no additional cost to all the taxpayers.
Folks, let's keep it down.
No new schools for 5 years, what you asked us to look at. Possible no reassignments needed until new schools are built. The reason I said possible is because you would not have a system-wide reset as far as redistricting. But if you had a bubble that bled over, I will just pick one for example. If for whatever reason Sardis grew in that Indian Trail area and you had room at Poplar, you might have to tweak the line to address that. But you would not have a system-wide reset. With that, I'll field any questions in regards to costs associated with the various options that staff looked at in the presenting the plan.
Board members, make sure to go back to the guidance so we have the microphones in case you have questions.
Board members, if you've got questions, we'll do that now. If we need to go back down, we can do that. The thing that I understand how dynamic this is for you folks here in the room, the Board of Education has to represent 42,000 children, 210,000 taxpayers, and it's a very difficult thing to do because we know that we are affecting your lives and we're affecting your children. So please work with us as we go through this and understand that when we were elected and put our hands on the Bible You know, we took an oath to represent not just you, but those folks that aren't here in the room tonight because they're not as affected as you are. But depending on what we do, they will be affected. No matter how we go down this path, we are a community from east to west. So there is no way that we affect your lives and we don't affect their lives. Or if we affect their lives, it will affect your lives. So I appreciate the energy and I appreciate greatly the passion. My wife may be here somewhere in the room, being redistricted as well if this is what the board decides to do. So please work with us as we work through this process over the coming weeks. We'll have the public forums. We want to hear what you have to say. But understand that we have to take into account 42,000 children that show up every day. Those are our stakeholders. And that we also represent the 200,000 plus taxpayers in Union County. So with that, do we have any other questions for staff at this time?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Hodges?
And I am not on the facilities committee, so if this stuff has been discussed in facilities, excuse me if I'm being redundant, but these are just some questions that I had. And the first one is really, would somebody please give me a clear definition of what core capacity is?
Your core capacity is the ability for us to meet those basic needs that I shared earlier, Ms. Hodges. It's the ability for us to make sure that we can feed our children. It's make sure that we have federal rules and regulations that we have to feed between this time and early as we can start and time that we have to finish feeding our children. It also includes the ability to make sure that we can get our children behind brick and mortar in a catastrophic situation. It also includes the ability for us to load and unload children safely in a car ride line, as Dr. Ellis alluded to, the staging of our car riders. It also includes the ability to provide the bus lot and adequate space. Right now, if you look at Kensington, they're loading and unloading cars. If you want to see how that looks, go over. I invite you to go see the staging of those cars and how they sometimes have to move over and cut into the bus parking lot. I would ask you to walk the halls of some of the schools at which we have capped and speak with those principals and ask them if they feel that that facility is safe for the children with the number that they have at this time.
In addition to that, prior to starting this process, when we realized almost a year ago that this was something that the facilities and then the full board would be taking up, we got together a group of professionals, not just school people, but a group of professionals who for a living protect. We got representatives from the Sheriff's Department, from the Monroe Police Department, from Fire and Safety, from Food Services. Who else have I left out?
Safety Director, our Safety Director, our Maintenance Director, from the Fire Marshal staff. And again, part of this was so that we could adequately put a number at which we could put children safely and meet those basic needs in a building, so that if we had to move through this process, we had a good solid number, that we weren't guessing what would be a safe number. So that's how we arrived at the capacity of our facilities.
And when we're talking about in a catastrophic situation, God forbid some kind of shooting situation, but as a student, I was part and party to a tornado coming through my high school and in a mobile unit and having to go inside. And so I guess maybe I'm just a little bit leery of that. Once you've been burned by something, you appreciate the fire of it. So this was not, the core capacity was not, as has been alluded in some social media sites, something that we dreamed up. It was, we got professionals to look at it to see what they said they thought it was. It was not simply us going in and saying, we think this is the number.
And are there variances for core capacity? So in a situation where you would have an issue with maybe a fire marshal coming in, could you apply for variances to be able to go over capacity in any shape or form?
Well, the only time the fire marshal would step in if it was dealing with life safety, that we were not able to meet those type of life safety needs. So the fire marshals you're asking, are they going to shut us down? No, but I think all of us have to look one another in the eye and say, can we put our children behind brick and mortar, especially in these new facilities where, you're looking to save energy, so there are a lot of windows for light, natural light to come in. So we're very, very limited. We would, in our new construction, be stacking children, not 2 layers, but could be 3 layers deep in our hallways.
I have a comment. Last time we had a hurricane, it was Hugo. I was a sophomore at South Neck High School. In this day and age, with our phones and all the what news channels here with your Doppler radar and I know that we always err on the side of caution. 2 weeks ago, we didn't even have 1 drop of precipitation, and we were erred on the side of caution, like you always say, Dr. Ellis, and we had a 2-hour delay. We don't live in the Dust Bowl, and so I guess I'm just trying to.
Ms. Savage, I respect your opinion greatly as a member of the Union County Board of Education and the State Board of Education. I own my opinion. I too am a taxpayer, and I'm the superintendent of this school system. And I will say to you, I feel like we have done in good conscience and we have done due diligence to come up with core capacity. I don't know what else to tell you, ma'am. It was not me picking a number. It was the professionals coming up with a number. And I really don't know what else to say about that, other than I certainly appreciate your opinion and respect greatly. You're one of my 9 bosses. I don't want to get cross with you. But the bottom line is I stand on my opinion, and I appreciate that you stand on yours, and I will do what the direction of the full board says for me to do, ma'am. I promise.
Well, so that being said, does core capacity vary from system to system, or is it statewide? Or is it
Varies the design of the facility. The design of the facility varies your core capacity.
Okay. So with Sun Valley and Parkwood being our older schools, there is no concern about core capacity shifting children from newer facilities.
Well, I can speak to that, considering I was principal at Sun Valley High School when it had over 1,800 students, Ms. Hodges, and I can share with you, we met the needs of our children when it came to instruction. As one of the top 10 high schools in the state of North Carolina, as well as with their safety.
I just want to make it really clear that it would be very foolish for us all not to be asking many, many questions over something so important. And I'm trying to gather information to do my due diligence. So I thought that's why we were here.
Mr. Chair, may I ask, if that was, I'm just not sure if that was addressed to Dr. Webb and me, and we will try to answer every question you have. If that was, I'm not even sure if that was addressed to us, Ms. Hodges.
Well, I'll just continue with my list if that's okay.
Please.
My next question was, are we looking into doing any other type of second opinion analysis aside from the McKibben report?
Why?
I'm just interested in having my questions asked. asked, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why
Just
that
asking for the
particular report.
clarification on,
Okay, well, from my perspective, I'll make an analogy. When I go to the doctor for a sore throat and he diagnoses me with a sore throat, I'm pretty good with getting that one opinion. When I go to a doctor and I have cancer, I'm probably going to get a second opinion for that because it's a magnitude issue. So I'm just asking the question, has the facilities committee, just discussed doing a second opinion on this? That's it. I'm not saying that, I'm just asking.
Ms. Hobbs, I think I can fill the question for you. There's two types of studies when you're looking at a demographer's report.
I can barely hear you, Mike.
There's two types of study. We utilized ORAD out of North Carolina State historically in the past. ORAD looked at trailing data, and it was never accurate for us as a school system. The error was unbelievable. So there's really only two types. You have those that utilize trailing data that has happened in the past. That's not really effective for a growing school system. The other are forecasts, like McKibben. So McKibben is well-known, well-respected as a demographer, and he has been extremely accurate, as I've shared with you and the full board in the presentation. So that has not been a discussion that the Facilities Committee has taken up. Because again, we had experience with those that utilize trailing data, and ORAD was abysmal on a good day for us. And we have found this practice of forecasting to be much more reliable.
Okay, my next question is, if a school was going to be built, where would you see it going? Because I know that we have, 2 areas of property that we already own, but where would you see, if something was going to be built, that strategically it would be the best placement for it?
Well, obviously, it would go where the Board of Education directed us to place that. As I shared with you earlier, that you've got the pendulum effect. You can either build it on the western side in the Cumberson area, or you can build it where we have property over at Henry Bridge area. That whittles off a year of your downtime, because we don't own the property to build a high school.
And if we build it at the Henry Bridge area, then we would still have to shift lines, do redistricting.
Well, I was just curious because I didn't know whether we would be utilizing land we already have, or if that was an option, we would be looking at land that we would be acquiring the land to, in other words.
We have land for a middle and high school on property D. It's up in Henry Bridge. We have 2 parcels of land in the western end of the county that I believe, based on the demographic map, we could possibly place an elementary school, and I'm looking at Don on that. We've got Cox Road, and then there at Cuthbertson, but I think there's only like 14 usable acres at Cuthbertson, if I remember correctly. There's enough room, excuse me. We do have donated acreage next to St. John's Forest, and then at Cuthbertson, on Cuthbertson Road. We could put an elementary school on Cuthbertson Road.
And as far as magnet schools go, in your proposal, or just for clarification, would we be utilizing a school that's already in place, or would we be looking for maybe a vacant facility somewhere in the county to put a magnet school? I'm just asking these questions. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm not expecting an immediate response to these. These are just some information that I wanted to know.
With a magnet school, off the top of my head, and we'd have to look around. We would have to look for a building. That's why I looked over at Don. We've not been in search for a building. That's why I looked at him. Magnet schools have historically been placed inside the schools, or specialized programs inside of schools.
Okay. And was there a lot of shifting of numbers when CATA opened from all over the county?
The initial class only took, I want to say it was 40 in most academies. I think one academy, it took 30. I'm looking over here at folks that opened it. So it was, at that point in time, first year it was 40, and then it was 40 each year in some academies, and 30 dependent upon the program. And that goes in each year. And then early college takes in about 80 a year. And early college is housed on South Piedmont, and they're out of space. And of course, CAT is at the old Career Center that was renovated in, oh gosh, '05.
And then two other options that people, obviously our emails have been full of people wanting to share options and wanting some questions asked. So I'm not sure whether these came to you guys or not. But I know that phased reassignment was something that had been brought up, as well as pretty much grandfathering everybody. So I don't, when phase reassignment, from my understanding of inquiry, what would be that you stay in your school that you're in until you go to the next level.
Without running the numbers for that, I can't comment. We certainly can run the numbers. That will take us a few days. The option of grandfathering everyone, I'm just sort of puzzled because we need to walk around a little bit to figure how and think on this, how we're going to facilitate all of the buses and that sort of thing. I think that would...
And that would effectively be capping.
That would affect, that's what I'm going, that would effectively be capping.
And would there be any benefit to lifting the cap for the people who are enrolled by the end of this school year, and resetting the cap for future enrollment of starting in August? So you would be lifting the cap so that somebody who is, say, in the Hunter Oaks neighborhood is not going to Parkwood for purposes of bus inefficiency. They would go back to their neighborhood school, and then the cap is reset for all incoming people into the system as of the end of school in June.
We could certainly do that.
I'm just throwing this question out. It's just some things to think about too. And keeping the cap, but possibly if you sold your house, the seat in that school would go with the sale of your house. So it would really just be to new construction
I would need to consult with our general counsel, because I truly would need some guidance with the legality of that, because that would be fraught with legal, I would think, and I'm not trying to put Ms. Morrison.
And I don't know that. I'm just going down my list of options and questions.
Donna's writing all this down. We will certainly research it.
Good, you got some more.
Combative student or an unruly parent that may come to the school. That's not really a common occurrence, is it?
No, it's not.
Would it be prudent to thereby recommend that we abolish SRO positions in our school, in your professional opinion?
Absolutely not.
My second question is, as far as fires that occur in the schools that require evacuation or place students in harm's way, I know our buildings are pretty much fire-resistant construction. by state standard, are occurrence of major fires in a school a commonplace occurrence in Union County Public Schools?
No, sir, not unless a child.
So,
It's a trash can.
by the same token, would it be wise, because of the lack of probability, to eliminate fire alarms based on the fact that it's a rare possibility? Would that be true of your profession? Dr. Webb, furthermore, as far as the standards for safe shelter in brick and mortar for severe weather or lockdowns due to an active shooter situation, the Department of Public Instruction, the North Carolina Department of Emergency Management, the NC Justice Department, as well as all our involved local officials, are part of the core group that set these standards, and some of the folks you consult with, right? This isn't anything that you just pull out of the air. These are professionals that do this day in and day out. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and as far as weather situations, the possibility of a tornado hitting or not hitting, there again, the probability may be low. That's a real possibility, isn't it?
It is.
An advance warning through text, Doppler radar, or whatever means, is just another tool to make sure that we get students into proper shelter in a proper time frame. Wouldn't you agree?
I would, as with anything dealing with safety, is trying to minimize a catastrophic situation, and it also helps minimize that.
Okay. So let's say that I'm going to direct this to Marcy Savage or Sherry Hodges. Let's say we seek some kind of variance and we exceed safe core capacity. We don't have adequate space to put students in brick and mortar. Exactly whose children do you intend to leave in harm's way?
Safety is the first priority for anybody. It is a basic human need. I don't think that you will find anyone who is going to say that safety is not the top priority in our schools. I don't know that I have enough information about core capacity at this point. So I am trying to educate myself to have a better understanding of exactly what the core capacity is as it relates to safety for our children.
If I may add to the full board, there are no variances for building code requirements on life safety issues. By statute, none.
Dr. Webb, and also life safety design capacity of schools is regulated by the North Carolina State Building Code Council, is it not, in the North Carolina Department of Insurance? This isn't a local call for us to make, is it?
That is correct.
But let me remind you that Marvin is an evacuation site that houses 5,000 people.
Site is part of a plan to evacuate neighbors that are affected by the Catawba Nuclear Station down in York County, South Carolina. It's not for a tornado shelter or anything of that nature. So let's make it. Dr. Webb, one other question, folks. As far as these additional funding, Dr. Ellis, you feel free to weigh in as well. As far as the diversion of funding, either from instructional tracks or the 6,000 series and our support services, we're already at a $283 million deficit in correcting deficiencies we have in the schools now. That's why we just endured a rather arduous lawsuit with the county commissioners, and we've only partially recovered if we are awarded the full judgment by the jury. Do we have any money available in instruction, support services, or in capital to offset any of these additional costs?
Suck it, cupcake.
Let's stand up, please.
Excuse me, with all due respect, I respect all of my board members and I love them as family, treat them as family, and I do the same thing for our administrators.